Welcome to Beast Whisperer. In the heart of an ancient rainforest, where light barely pierced the thick canopy above, silence held a sacred weight. The air was heavy with damp moss and unseen eyes. Every leaf shimmered with dew, every tree trunk whispered secrets of centuries past. Deep within this living cathedral, something stirred. A cry, muffled and low, like a soul weeping beneath the surface of the earth. Amir, a lone conservationist who had spent years walking these hidden paths, moved with cautious purpose. The forest, both cruel and beautiful, had become his second skin. He'd come searching for illegal traps, deadly snares left by poachers, but he hadn't expected this. The sound that had drawn him in was unmistakable. Pain, desperation, and something else. Dignity, perhaps. He parted a curtain of hanging vines and froze. There, in a shallow depression beneath a tangle of roots, lay a creature of raw, untamed elegance. A panther. Its black coat shimmered like moonlit ink, marred only by blood and dirt. A cruel iron trap clamped around its hind leg, deep into flesh and bone. Its breathing was shallow, golden eyes dull with agony but still sharp with warning. Amir's heart thudded. The trap was rusted, cruel, and ancient. Its teeth dug into living muscle like it had been designed to punish, not just kill. He stepped closer, but the panther let out a low, guttural snarl. It couldn't move much, but its front claws flexed in the earth, muscles twitching with a last reserve of primal defense. For a long moment, Amir simply stood there, arms relaxed at his sides, eyes locked with the predators. This wasn't a rescue yet. It was a negotiation between worlds that rarely met in peace. He crouched slowly and spoke in a soft, steady tone. Not in words the panther would understand, but in a voice that carried no threat. A voice that asked, "Will you let me try?" Every movement was measured, deliberate. From his satchel he drew a length of rope. It was for safety, to make a soft muzzle, not to dominate, but to avoid a fatal mistake. The panther tensed, eyes tracking every inch of his approach. One sudden move could mean disaster. Amir's fingers worked quickly, his breath steady despite the tremor in his hands. Sweat trickled down his spine as he slipped the loop gently around the panther's snout. The panther didn't strike. It didn't retreat. It only watched, frozen between fear and trust. With trembling hands, Amir reached for the trap. He whispered a prayer to no one in particular, then braced his boot on one side of the iron jaws. The pressure was immense. His arms shook with the effort. The panther twitched beneath him, snarled, then went still again. At last, after what felt like hours, the trap released with a loud, sharp snap. The metal teeth sprang open, freeing mangled flesh. The panther collapsed, eyes fluttering closed. Amir caught its head gently before it hit the forest floor. Blood poured from the wound, warm and thick. He worked quickly, binding it with gauze and strips of his own shirt. The forest held its breath around them, and for the first time, the panther allowed his touch without flinching. Night descended quickly. Amir knew he couldn't leave the animal here, alone, bleeding, vulnerable to scavengers or another patrol of poachers. He fashioned a crude stretcher from branches and rope, sliding the unconscious cat onto it with reverence, not force. Then began the long, grueling walk back to his camp. For hours he dragged the weight through uneven terrain, stumbling through roots and thorns. The jungle grew colder, darker, every sound a threat. At one point, a rifle cracked through the night. Poachers. Amir froze, heart slamming into his ribs. Voices echoed faintly. He pulled the panther close and ducked beneath a fallen tree. Breath shallow. If they were caught, there would be no mercy. But fate moved in their favor. The voices drifted past. Amir waited for what felt like eternity, then pressed on, never letting go. By the time they reached the clearing near his camp, dawn was breaking again. Soft pink light brushed the treetops. Amir laid the panther beside the fire pit and collapsed beside it, utterly spent. Over the next days, time became a blur of motion and stillness. Amir cleaned the wound twice daily, applied herbal salves, and forced water between the cat's teeth with a soaked rag. At first, the panther resisted, growling low, biting at the air. But then, gradually, something shifted. Its eyes began to meet his not with suspicion, but with reluctant acceptance. Its breathing grew stronger. It stopped flinching when Amir touched its paw. One night, as a storm raged above them, the panther curled beside him beneath the tarp, pressing its warmth against his thigh. Amir didn't move. He simply rested a hand on its side, feeling the powerful heart beating beneath that sleek, scarred fur. Man and beast. No longer enemies. Not quite friends. Something else. It was during one of those quiet nights that it happened. A sharp crack of wood, the smell of sweat and iron. The poachers were back. Amir barely had time to grab his machete before they emerged. Two of them, rifles gleaming in the firelight. One barked an order, the other raised his weapon. The panther stood. It rose, limping but defiant, fur bristling. A low, guttural growl filled the air, vibrating through the earth. The poachers hesitated. This was no ordinary animal. This one stood guard. This one protected. Then it charged. Not to kill, just to terrify. And it worked. The poachers panicked, stumbling backward into trees, dropping their weapons as they ran. Gone, swallowed by the forest. The panther returned to Amir, eyes never leaving the tree line until the danger had passed. Then it rested its head on his shoulder, chest heaving. Amir wrapped his arms around it, overcome. "You saved me," he whispered. "You really saved me." The days that followed were filled with quiet recovery. The forest had returned to its rhythm. Amir and the panther often sat in silence, staring into the trees. A bond beyond words had been forged. But all stories have an ending. One morning, Amir awoke to find the panther standing at the edge of the clearing, its leg fully healed. The sun cast a golden crown around its head. It looked back at him one last time. Then, with grace and power, it disappeared into the trees. He thought that was the last he'd see of it. Until 2 weeks later. Amir was following an elephant trail through the northern valley when he found something strange. Trampled grass, broken bamboo, and the unmistakable scent of the panther. He followed it, heart racing, until he stumbled into a clearing. There, standing tall and calm, was a massive elephant. One Amir had rescued years ago as a calf. Beside it, the panther. The two stood together in perfect stillness, watching him. Then, the elephant reached into a nearby bush with its trunk and pulled something out. A single perfect white lotus. It stepped forward and placed the flower at Amir's feet. He sank to his knees, overwhelmed. The panther let out a low purr and brushed against his side. In that moment, Amir understood. The forest never forgets kindness. It repays compassion in whispers, in echoes, in miracles. A man had saved a wounded creature once, and now, two creatures, bound not by blood, but by shared mercy, had returned together, not just to thank him, but to remind him of something deeper. That love, loyalty, and courage don't belong only to humans. They belong to the wild, too.